Hello again, Indah Melindasari here from ONEderland Consulting. I have over 10 years experience as a migration agent and was once a migrant myself. Please click subscribe to get all the best Australian immigration content and updates. Today our news video will be slightly different from the usual format. As we are approaching the end of the year, I will be reviewing some of the biggest news and immigration and visa changes from 2020, and we will be going over the latest news from this month and looking forward to the new year to discuss what the trends for visas and immigration will be in the new year. Now let's get started with the review of 2021. Part 1, 2021 in review. 2021 was another year of strict travel restrictions in Australia, which meant that there were far less international arrivals and visa grant when compared to normal rates. But there were a slight increase from 2020 during the early days of the pandemic. Some of the biggest changes in 2021 involve work visas and skilled migration, as the lack of international students and travel restrictions on temporary work visas resulted in labor shortages in many Australian industries, particularly in regional areas. To address some of these labor shortages, it was announced in June 2021 that 22 new occupations were added to the Priority Migration Skilled Occupation List, or PMSOL. In the 2020, the focus of the PMSOL was primarily towards occupations in medical fields as Australia continued the ongoing containment of the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, the focus turned more towards labor shortages and Australia's economic recovery going forward. Amongst the new occupations included, many were in fields relating to the mining industry, especially engineers. There were also occupations added in IT fields as Australia continues to push themselves as technological hub of the future. As Australia eased local travel restrictions and domestic tourism rose around the country, the deficit of hospitality and tourism works started to become very apparent. Chef was also amongst the occupation added. This may be an indication that more hospitality roles will be added in the future. You can find the complete list of added occupations in the link posted in the description. In November 2021, there were 3 big announcements on regulation changes. The first of these announcements was that there will be options for future visa applications for people affected by Section 48 bar. If your visa is refused or cancelled while in Australia, you are subject to restrictions under Section 48 of the Migration Act. When Section 48 applies, you are unable to apply for another substandard visa in Australia, except for a few visa categories. You may be able to apply for another visa from outside Australia, and of course, if you leave the country. Under the new rules, even if you are affected by Section 48 bar, you will still be able to apply for the subclass 491, which is the Skilled Work Regional Visa, the subclass 494, which is the Skilled Employer Sponsored Regional Visa, and the subclass 190, which is the Skilled Nominated Visa. And with this new rule in place, it will allow skilled workers that may have been subject to the 48 bar to be able to contribute to the economic recovery and address labor shortages. It allows skilled workers an opportunity to stay in Australia, where their skills may be badly needed, such as in regional areas. For more details on this story and how to apply for the eligible visa, you can find a link to an article in the description. Also announced was that there will be a future permanent resident pathways available for those in occupations listed on the short-term skilled occupation list, which is used for the short-term stream of the TSS482 visa that previously did not have any direct pathway to permanent residence. All the details of this intended change have not been finalized, but the government will keep us updated on the latest developments. The last of these announcements, and one of more significant changes as the year came to a close, was the holders of 28 types of temporary visas will now be able to enter Australia without a travel exemption. Among this list of visa was student visas, 482 temporary skill shortages visa, the 485 skilled graduate visa, the working holiday visa, 870 temporary parent visa, and the 300 prospective marriage visa, and amongst others. Many of these temporary visa holders had been stranded overseas with no way of returning to Australia, and many families were left stranded without options. Temporary visa holders within Australia were unable to leave to return to their homes as they had no guarantee that they could return. This is one of the first biggest steps of Australia easing border restrictions, giving many hope that the situation is slowly returning to normal. It is also a boost for Australia, given how much international students contribute not only to the economy, but also the labor force, as their absence has been felt greatly. It allows skilled workers more options into Australia when they are badly needed. Part 2. Latest immigration and visa news, December 2021. Now on to some of the latest news from this month, starting with the Government of Western Australia has announced an exact date of when they will be reopening the border. Western Australia has had some of the strictest border restrictions during the pandemic, but finally there is an end in sight as the Western Australian government announced that the state will be reopening its border in line with their vaccination milestone on February 5th, 2022. Definitely some good news for those of you that have been waiting to travel to Perth, which is Australia's fourth biggest city. Perth gives potential migrants the advantage of living in an urban area, but also having access to more visa options and benefits since it is classified as a regional area. In other news, this month, the Australian government signed 2 new DAMA Australia programs to support the regional areas in their economic recovery. The new DAMA programs will be in Goulburn Valley, Victoria, and in southwest Western Australia. The new DAMA Australia programs are intended to fill critical labour shortages for business and industries, aiming to support the growth of the local population and create new job opportunities. DAMA Australia, or Designated Area Migration Agreement, is a formal agreement between the Australian federal government and state or territorial regional authority. The DAMA program Australia is generally in effect for 5 years and use the employer-sponsored working visa, such as temporary skill shortages subclass 482, the skilled employer-sponsored regional, the subclass 494, which is available in ACT, South Australia, and regional DAMAs only, and employer-nominated scheme subclass 186. It means you must be sponsored by an employer operating in a designated region, and you must work for an occupation specified in the HEAD agreement. To find out the rule and the full details of these new programs, you can find a link to our article in the subscription. Part 3. The Australia Migration Program in 2022. Finally, today we will be looking at some upcoming changes to the migration program and trends as we head into 2022. With COVID-19 for now on the retreat and normalcy returning to border policies and international travel opening, the main focus now will be the economic recovery. This means there will be a trend and focus towards student visa and facilitating the return of international students to Australia. International education is Australia's third largest export, and with the loss of returning and new international students due to border restriction has cost the Australian government billions of dollars. The handling of the hundreds of thousands of international students that were stranded abroad and unable to return to continue has experts worried that it has soiled the reputation of international education in Australia, and that more and more prospective students will be looking towards other international study hubs such as the UK and Canada. Students also contribute to the economy as part of the workforce, especially in the hospitality sector, which is facing massive labor shortages without international students and working holidaymakers. Australia will be looking to prioritize the return of international students heading into 2022 and also to keep attracting new students to sustain their valuable contribution to the economy. Likewise, working visa will be a large focus going forward as many industries are facing labor shortages that will only continue to get worse as Australia opens up again. As we have already touched on in this video, the hospitality sector is in great need of workers, so there could be possibly more occupations in this industry prioritized on occupation lists and new pathways to permanent resident for temporary workers in this sector. Another industry suffering from the lack of influx of new temporary workers has been the agriculture industry. The creation of the new agriculture stream of the subclass 403 visa is evidence that the government is actively trying to address this issue. The new stream, which should become available to sometime in the first half of the year, will be targeted at Asian countries as similar programs with Pacific Islander nations have been successful in addressing the shortages. There is talk as well of offering permanent resident pathways through the agriculture visa, which not only address the seasonal shortage but long-term as well. Other industries such as the mining, retail, construction, manufacturing, and healthcare all facing shortage. It could see a number of occupations in this field prioritized. With the pandemic, many businesses were having to shift into the digital realm. As a result, IT and digital occupations will be in great demand as well. All it is looking like 2020 will provide heaps of opportunity and visa places for skilled and even less skilled workers as Australia tries to get its economy back on track. Well, that's the roundup of all the biggest changes of 2021. If you have any questions about how these changes may affect you or benefit you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, leave a comment or questions, and we will get back to you ASAP. You can find our contact details in the description and in the comments, so feel free to send an email or call with an inquiry, and our advisors will be there for all your visa needs. ONEderland Consulting is here to help you. As always, thank you for watching.